These are 7 that I have found in Sahih Ahadith as exceptions to the rule, the Aam rule, that the salah of the woman is like the men. Other than this, I did not find any clear Sahih Ahadith to differentiate between the salah of the man and woman. So that would mean that other than these exceptions, the salah of the man and the salah of the woman is basically the same. But even in that, what are the adillah? And I'm going to discuss these, not so much in detail, but you guys may think it's detail, but if you knew how much time I spent on this, then you would know this is not in detail. And I'm going to show you some books. Why? Because when I read one side and I read the other side, it really hurts me because I see both do not use academic research. One person kind of brings one hadith and then kind of ignores everything else. The other, they find a hadith, they don't look at the authenticity, they just get it and they just stick to it just to fight each other. And this is wrong. Ikhwan fillah, we are Muslim. We have done, we have submitted ourselves. Aslama. So we should look at the evidence. And what the evidence proves, we should take. Whether we like it or not, whether our imam, our shaykh, our madhab, our masjid, doesn't matter. And what the evidence doesn't prove, we should leave.
Although knowledge causes conceit, its medicine is also knowledge. It is very difficult to obtain remedy for knowledge which causes conceit. Knowledge is a very valuable thing. A person who possesses knowledge thinks of himself as superior and honorable. It is more correct to say that his knowledge is not real knowledge but is, in fact, ignorance. Real knowledge teaches one his weaknesses and shortcomings as well as the superiorities and greatness of Allahu Ta'ala. It increases one's fear toward Allahu Ta'ala and humility toward his creatures and causes him to respect the rights of others. Learning and teaching this type of knowledge is obligatory and is called Ilm al-Nafi. Hadith-e-Sharif states, anyone who claims to be a scholar is an ignoramus. People who present themselves to be knowledgeable about everything, for example, by answering every question or giving an interpretation of everything they see, are actually displaying their ignorance.
Today, those who are called Muslims and are known as the Al-Ummat al-Muhammadiyya are almost entirely composed of the Ahl Sunnah, the Shiites, and the Wahhabis. A mu'min or Muslim or Musliman is one who believes and accepts the Islamic teachings that were communicated to humanity through Muhammad a.s. by Allah Ta'ala and which have spread over Muslim countries. These teachings were declared in the Quran al-Karim and explained in thousands of hadiths. The Sahabat al-Kiram heard them from the Prophet ﷺ. The Salaf al-Salihin, i.e. the Islamic scholars who came after the Sahabat al-Kiram in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, wrote them in their books as they heard them directly or through other scholars who had heard them from the Sahabat al-Kiram. Islamic scholars who succeeded them differed from one another in their explanation of the knowledge reported by the Salaf al-Salihin. Thus, 73 groups differing in the teachings pertaining to tenets of belief came into being. Only one of these groups did not follow their personal thoughts and opinions, or change or add anything in their elucidations. This group with correct credo is called the Ahl Sunnah or Sunni. The remaining 72 groups who digressed as a result of erroneous interpretation and explanation of unclear ayats and hadiths are called groups of bid'ah or dalala, deviation, heresy, or the la madhabi. They are Muslims too, but they are in heresy. One should very much avoid disliking the words of any of the A'immat al-Madhahib or hold one's own opinion superior to theirs. Others' knowledge and comprehension are next to nothing when compared with those of mujtahids. The Ahl Sunnah, with respect to practices and acts of worship, consists of 4 madhabs. The first one, the Hanafi madhab, was founded by Al-Imam Al-Azham, Abu Hanifa Nu'man bin Thabit, rahmatullahi alayh. Hanif means a person who believes correctly, who clings to Islam. Abu Hanifa means the father of true Muslims. The second of the 4 madhabs of the Ahl Sunnah is the Maliki madhab of Imam Malik ibn Anas, rahmatullahi alayh. The third one is the Shafi madhab of Imam Muhammad ibn Idris ash-Shafi, rahmatullahi alayh. Hadrat Shafi, a Sahaba, was the grandfather of the Imam's grandfather. That is why he and his madhab were called Shafi. The fourth one is the Hanbali madhab of Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahmatullahi alayh. As is written in the preface of Rad al-Mukhtar by Ibn Abidin, these four Imams were born in the Hijri years 80, 90, 150, and 164, and passed away in 150, 179, 204, and 241, respectively. With respect to Ittiqad, or creedal tenets, these four madhabs are not different from one another. All of them belong to the Ahl Sunnah, and their beliefs and the basis of their religion is the same. These four Imams of the Muslims were great mujtahids, recognized and believed by everybody. Yet they disagreed with one another in some small matters with respect to practices, the Ahkam-i Islamiyah. Because Allah Ta'ala and His Prophet ﷺ pitied Muslims, it was not declared clearly in the Quran al-Karim and Hadith Sharifs how some practices should be done. These practices would have to be done by comparing them to those declared clearly. Among religious scholars, those who are capable of understanding how such practices are to be done after comparing them were called mujtahid. It was wajib, i.e., it was commanded in the Quran al-Karim and Hadith Sharifs for a mujtahid to strive with his utmost energy to find out how a certain practice is to be done, and for him and for those who follow him to perform it in accordance with his deduction or choice, ijtihad. All these Sahabat al-Kiram radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in were great scholars, i.e. mujtahids. Among the people who lived immediately after them, there were many great scholars capable of ijtihad, and each of them was followed by very many people. In the course of time, most of them were forgotten, and among the Ahl Sunnah, only the four madhabs survived. Afterwards, lest someone might come forth and pretend to be a mujtahid and make up a heretical group, the Ahl Sunnah did not follow any madhab other than these four. Millions of people among the Ahl Sunnah followed one of these four madhab. A person has to adapt himself in every respect to the madhab he follows by learning its teachings when there is no kharaj. The Adlat al-Sharia, or documents, sources of Islam, consists of four parts: the Quran al-Karim, Hadith Sharifs, Ijma al-Ummah, and Qiyas al-Fuqaha. When the mujtahids could not see in the Quran al-Karim clearly how a certain practice is to be done, they would resort to Hadith Sharifs. If they could not find it clearly in Hadith Sharifs either, they would declare that the practice should be done in accordance with the ijma on that action, if there had been any. If the way of doing a certain practice could not be found through ijma either, then it would be necessary to follow the qiyas of mujtahids. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayh said that besides these four documents, the unanimity of the inhabitants of Al-Madinat al-Munawwara of that time was a document. He said their tradition, unanimity, was handed down from their fathers, from their grandfathers, and originally from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said that this document was more dependable than qiyas. Yet the Imams of the other three madhabs did not consider the inhabitants of Medina a source for documentation. There were two methods for ijtihad. One was the method of the ulama of Iraq, called the way of ray, or choice, or the way of qiyas, comparison. If it was not declared clearly in the Quran al-Karim or Hadith Sharifs how to do a certain practice, another practice that was clearly expressed in the Quran al-Karim or Hadith Sharifs, and which was similar to the practice in question, would be searched for. When it was found, the practice in question would be compared to it and done in a similar way. After the Sahabat al-Kiram, the leader of the mujtahids of this way was Imam al-Azham Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayh. The second way was the way of the ulama of Hijaz, called the way of riwayah, or tradition. They considered the traditions of the inhabitants of Al-Madinat al-Munawwara superior to qiyas. The greatest of the mujtahids of this way was Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayh, who lived in Al-Madinat al-Munawwara. Al-Imam Ash-Shafi and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhima attended his suhbats. Al-Imam Ash-Shafi, after learning the way of Imam Malik, went to Baghdad and learned the way of Al-Imam Al-Azham rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh from his disciples and united these two methods. He established a new approach for ijtihad. Because he was very eloquent and literary man, he understood the context of ayats and hadiths and decided on each practice in accordance with an alternative he found more emphatic. When he could not find an alternative emphatic enough, he himself employed ijtihad according to the way of qiyas. Ahmed ibn Hanbal rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh too went to Baghdad after learning the way of Imam Malik rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh. There he acquired a method of qiyas from the disciples of Al-Imam Al-Azam rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh. Yet, because he had memorized a great many hadiths, he employed ijtihad first by examining the way whereby hadiths corroborated one another. Thus, he disagreed with the other three madhabs on many points concerning the Ahkam al-Islamiyah, since there was complete agreement among them concerning belief and on most of the acts of worship, i.e. the rules that are openly stated in the Quran al-Karim and Hadith al-Sharifs. They did not criticize one another. It's written in many books that 400 years after the Hijrah, there were no longer any scholars capable of performing mutlaq or absolute ijtihad. The Hadith al-Sharif in the 318th page of Al-Hadika states that false heretical men of religious post will increase in number. For this reason, every Sunni Muslim today has to follow taqlid, one of the four known madhabs. That is, they have to read and adopt the Ilm al-Hal books of one of these four madhabs and have iman and do all of their practices in accordance with these books. Thus, they will become a member of one of these madhabs. A person who does not follow one of them cannot be a Sunni, but a La Madhabi person who either belongs to one of the 72 heretical groups or has become a non-Muslim. The author of the book Mizan al-Kubra rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh writes in its preface, all the forgotten madhabs and the present four are sahih and valid. None of them is superior to any other because they are all based on the same sources of Islam.